In today's video, I'm going to show you how to mix and master your own kicks. How can you make your kick as loud as possible? How can you achieve that maximum loudness without sacrificing the low end? What do you put on the master chain? Is it a soft clipper? Is it a hard clipper? Is it an inflator? So hopefully after this lesson, you'll be able to mix and master your own kicks. And make sure to watch the whole video because I put a sneaky giveaway in it. Let's go. All right, welcome to the project. For this tutorial, I've built another kick. It's kind of a bloodlust kick. Kind of cool. I actually made a lot more for that later, but let's work with this now. Okay, so what are we hearing? The kick is good. Okay, so we want to achieve that maximum loudness. Let's start off with a EQ to see what's going on here. So you're aiming for a as flat as possible frequency spectrum. So this could use a little bit of a boost. We can do that here, or we can go back to the tail. But since we're mastering one kick, we're just going to do it in the final EQ, if you will. A little bit of a boost over here. This looks good. Maybe a little bit of a bell at the end. So this purpose of this EQ is actually adjusting where there needs to be an adjustment. No shit. So if there's any peaks or any lows, you can adjust it here at the master. Okay. This looks kind of okay for now. This one is probably the punch. That's okay for now, I would say. I think I'm going to turn down that snare a little bit. Yep. Cool. So the whole purpose of mixing and mastering is, well, obviously mixing is the first step. You want to mix your kick until it sounds good. So what I just did, adjusting the snare, is more of a mixing thing. The mastering part is usually the finalizing part. So let's say your kick is 100% mixed. Then you're going to go to the mastering part. And what is the mastering part? I would describe it as mixing is 90%, mastering is 10%. Your kicks should sound good 90%. That other 10% is just for small adjustments and to, you know, crank up the volume and make sure it hits hard and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to call this an corrective EQ. All right, so you can, in this tutorial, we're just going to talk about the basics. We can also do stereo placement. Let's say you don't like, you want the punch a little bit more stereo. But we're not going to do that in this tutorial. We're not going to go too in depth. We're going to talk about the basics. So the basics are, you know, high output and volume with enough low end. Okay, so corrective EQ, and then I would say what is really important is that you add, I don't know why it keeps jumping to this preset. What is important at the master is that you cut down the frequencies below 20 hertz. Why is that? Because it's a rumble that you don't hear or feel. Most sound systems don't support that. So if you want to clean up your mix, this is what you should do. And you do that by changing it to the linear phase. What does that mean? That means it doesn't change the phasing of the oscillator, in this case, the tail, the kick. So keep it, I would say 20, maybe a little bit less. And then you can do the same thing for the high frequencies we don't hear. I'm already a little bit older, so I don't hear until, 15,000, something like that. So yeah, just get rid of frequencies you don't need, honestly. Okay, so we'll call this low cut plus high cut, okay? Now, obviously, we want it to sound a little bit harder, all right? So, and I'm gonna stick to the most basic plugins. Obviously, you can use an inflator, even though that's not the secret sauce for this. It's a very easy way to, you know, crank it up. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm gonna turn it up. By putting a balancer on it. I don't want to touch the master. I'm going to use a fruity balancer. There's multiple ways to do this, but for now I'm just going to use the fruity balancer. There we go. And cranking it up. Yeah, something like that. A little bit of distortion is okay. A little bit of clipping, by the way. I'm going to put a Uline loudness meter. That is the way to go. What this tool does, if you're not familiar with it, is it, you know, we have the decibels right here, right? This is the output in decibels, but the output in decibels is only the signal sound. So what the Uline loudness meter does is the amount of LUFS. So it's the perceived sound volume, the perceived loudness. So what you're actually hearing. So what does that mean? Well, a decibel meter only displays the signal, and the signal is not equally to the volume output. You would think so, but that's a rookie mistake. So that's why a lot of people are mastering their kicks, and they were like, yeah, well, it was reaching in 0.0 dB, and now it still doesn't sound hard. Yeah, right. Correct, because you didn't master your kick the proper way. So a 0.0 dB is only the signal, and the amount of LUFS is what you're actually hearing. So let's talk about LUFS. What is the sweet spot in LUFS? For a kick, it can be anything between -2, which is very loud, and -4, which is not so loud. So why would you choose -2? Okay, you would choose -2 because it's really loud. And what's the con of -2 LUFS? So a really loud kick. The con is that it would have less low end, because the whole game of getting lower LUFS, I need to change that. Lower LUFS means higher output. Is that you want to balance the low end versus the volume output. You cannot have the loudest output with the most low end possible. That's just not going to happen. That's distortion. That's going to distort. There's no plugin in the world that can do a -2 LUFS kick, so very loud, versus a -4 LUFS kick with a lot of low end, and the low end will be the same. That's impossible. So that's the whole game of mastering your kicks, is how much low end would you be able to sacrifice to achieve the highest LUFS. So there's a sweet spot I tell my students, which is -3 LUFS. I would say it's the balance between a lot of low end and a lot of volume output. But there's guys in the scene like Regain, Sparks. They have very loud kicks, and they sacrifice a little bit of low end. And why would you do that? Well, it doesn't really matter when you play it live. When you play it live, of course it's nice to have low end, of course, but I think overall it's more important that it's louder, because people will be like, oh shit, that's really, that hits hard in the face. So that's the whole game of mastering your kicks. LUFS versus low end. Okay? So that being said, what is the actual status of this kick? Alright, so -3.3 LUFS, which is very decent. So I can do two things. I can call it a day, which I'm obviously not going to do. And I think you guys are more interested. How would you crank this up? Okay, well, I can put another fruity balancer on this, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do it with multiband compression. And why would we do that with multiband compression? Well, let me show you. Maximus is a multiband compression. Am I going to talk about multiband compression right now? Yes, really quickly. Multiband compression is, you have 3 layers: lows, mid, highs. So if you have the audio spectrum, I don't know if you can see it over here. Yeah, you can see it over here. Okay, let's make it a little bit bigger. So the lows are considered 20 to 150 hertz. Then the mids are considered 200 to whatever you want to do it, 2,500 thousand hertz, and then the highs over here, right? So you have low, mid, highs. That's a multiband compression. And what can you do with that? Well, the multiband, so the 3 bands, you can compress them separately. So in this case, you can adjust the low end, you can adjust the mids, and you can adjust the highs really quick. So that's very convenient if your kick has not enough low end or too much low end, whatever. So let's play around with that. Let's go back to the monitor. I can already hear some limiting. Let's turn the master off really quick. Yeah, so let's put it this way. This is the clipping of the... Let's turn that off. By default, it's on like this, and then you can see it already ducks. It compresses the peaks to preserve this threshold. So let's crank up this threshold. Basically, this is a fruity wave shaper. You guys are familiar with it. Well, this is a fruity wave shaper and a multiband compression in one. Okay, now let's see what we can do. Can we crank it up with more low end? Let's see. Let's just open the game. Do you hear that distortion? I think we already achieved the maximum loudness for the low end. So that means we can crank it up by pushing the mids or the highs a little bit and turn down the low end, or the master in general. Let's see, maybe it sounds better with a little bit more mids. A little bit more highs. When I press that up, we're not going to dive into the settings of the multiband compression too much. This is a basic tutorial, but I can clearly hear that the clap in the kick is really being pushed with these basic settings. So I think we're just going to stick to the master and cranking that up. Right, so we're stuck at minus 3.1 LUFS because anything above it is going to sound distorted. So I'm going to turn down the low end a little bit. Cranking up the master a little bit. And there you have it. You have a minus 2.2 LUFS kick because we sacrificed the low end. Did you see what happened? And that's the whole easy game of basic mastering your kicks. If you want to make your kicks ready to be played at a party, make sure it's loud, make sure the low end is clean, and make sure the low end is sufficient. So now we are at minus 2.3 LUFS. That is pretty... 1 second. Hello? I'm in the middle of something. Is it important? Christmas discount? 30%? 30% high? Alright. Kick creator program? Alright, you want to put this in there? With all the... Okay. Alright, all the... Okay, I got you. Alright, thank you. Alright, gotta go, bye. Sorry about that. So apparently we have a 30% discount, Christmas discount. So everything's on sale right now. So you might want to check that out. And on top of that, we have a kick drum, the ultimate kick drum course. 5 hours of in-depth lessons and this kick builder with all these kicks in them. So check it out. Everything is 30% off in the store right now. All right, let's go back to it. And since you're still watching, I want to give you the opportunity. Comment down below what you would like to see next for next tutorial, and I'm going to select one winner that will receive the ultimate kick drum course for free. All right, so we're at the last part of the kick, and that is to put a limiter on it. So because you don't want it to, you know, clip, distort, or go past 0.0 dB decibel meter. So, and this is where it gets a little bit complicated because there is a fruity limiter and that works really fine. I just put these attack, release, sustain. You can also use a wave shaper, whatever. The only problem with that I have is that it reaches a little bit of a peak. The true peak is 1.1 dB and there's no way of turning on the true peak limiting with this basic plugin. So usually what I do is I go to FabFilter L2 and then work from here. So what I do here is put the true peak limiting on. So in that way, it doesn't surpass the 0.0 dB. Put it on aggressive. Checking the loudness. Maybe turn up the gain a little bit. Be careful with the dynamics. I think it's going to be a little bit too hydraulic pressed. Maybe remove a little bit of low end. That might bring up the transient a little bit better because we're so loud right now. Okay, so I'm satisfied with that. So looking at it right now, we don't have the true peaks. We have a minus 0.2 LUFS. Okay, cool. So now the kick is finished. It's loud. There's low end. And let's check the, you can do it with Span. Span is a free analyzer. Not too bad, maybe a little bit too much in the higher regions, so we could turn that down with the Maximus a little bit to make it a little bit more balanced. Yeah, it looks pretty decent. What a lot of people also do is, sometimes I do it too, there's a frequency here and it's around 300 hertz, and what it does, it separates the punch from the tail in the kick. So if you make a little bit of a cut over there, this peak right here, it's a little bit resonant, so you can get rid of that a little bit. Makes it cleaner. So yeah, that's it for this tutorial, guys. Again, it's basic mixing, mastering, but the bottom line is you are now able to create a kick that will sound loud. You now understand how you can adjust the mids, the lows, the highs with multiband compression. You understand that you have to put a limiter on it, preferably with a true peak limiter. Unfortunately, FL Studio doesn't support that right now. And the EQs for corrections and the span filter to check if everything is as flat as possible, and then of course the Ulene loudness meter to check the LUFS. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you learned something. Let me know in the comments if you learned something, and also let me know in the comments what you want to see next for the next tutorial. And by that being said, I wish you guys a Merry Christmas, the best for 2025. You're gonna kill it. You're gonna make those bangers 100%. So safe holidays, and I'll see you in the next year.